Alright class, in this video for this week, we're going to talk about how to input information into our drawing, or how does AutoCAD sees the drawing so that it can give us the way of inputting the information on the actual drawing file. So I have this image in front of me, and I'm pretty sure you have seen this from your math classes previously. And we have here a coordinate system. Okay, we have a lot of points, and again, going back to your math class, or your math classes you have taken before, we have a x and y coordinate. Okay, x runs left to right or right to left, and y runs up and down. Okay, where x and y meet, that's considered the origin. Okay, so where that dot is, that's considered the origin. And I'm using this graphic just so you can recall what you already know. So that's the origin. And by connecting those two axes, we have 4 quadrants. Okay, on the top right, we have a quadrant, and it's positive, positive, because it's going from the origin positive to, on the x-axis, is going positive on the y-axis. On the top left, we have negative, positive, because we're going negative on x, positive on y. On the bottom left, we have negative, negative. We're going negative on x and negative on y, from 0 again. And on the bottom right, we have positive, negative, because we're going positive on x, negative on y. So just by seeing this, just by seeing the quadrants, you will know that whenever you input a point in the coordinate system, you always start with x. It's always x and y. Okay? So I know you have seen this before, that's why I'm showing it to you. So this is the coordinate system. We have x, y, and in our case we have x, y, and z. But right now we're not going to discuss that. Okay? Our origin is right where 0 is, where 0 is for x and where 0 is for y. And actually, where 0 is for z, that right now is pointing towards us, that's why we cannot see it. If you remember this, now just make this transition from this information that you already know into our AutoCAD drawing. This is exactly how you need to see AutoCAD. You have x and y. Okay, x is gonna go horizontal, y is gonna go vertical. Now if we see the quadrants, see that, you see that square where x and y meet? That's called the origin. And the origin is 0, 0. 0 on x, 0 on y, and also 0 on z. So if we look at this line, you see that line, this quadrant would be positive, positive. This quadrant is negative, positive. This quadrant, negative, negative. This quadrant, negative, positive. So I'm going to do a line just so you can see it, have a visual of it. It'll be something like this. This is one quadrant, another quadrant, another quadrant, another quadrant. So that's how AutoCAD works, okay? Which means you can choose points and start doing your drawings. More than likely, the majority of our time, we're not going to be using points. But if you're doing a civil drawing, for example, you're doing a site plan with coordinates and bearings, more than likely you will. On this video, I'm just going to show you how is it that AutoCAD works. Okay, so we have a coordinate system that is based on x and y and z, and there's a lot of points that you can use to create your shapes, your objects. Okay, it all depends on which quadrant you're working. Now, there's something down here on the status bar. We discussed this last week. This is called the status bar. Now we're going to go into what these are. Well, the majority of it. Well, the majority of them, not all of them. So this right here is a drawing coordinates. If you don't see them, if you don't see that, just come here to these lines, customization, and make sure you have your coordinates on. Okay, now just take a look of what you have here. You have numbers, comma, numbers, comma, numbers. This means it's X, the first numbers is X, then Y, then Z. Okay, so I'm gonna hover my mouse, my crosshair, to this top right section of the origin. And notice those numbers are positive. Positive 8 point something and positive 5 point something. Notice that as I'm moving my mouse, those points are changing because I'm selecting different points on the grid. And notice how precise those are. If I jump to this quadrant, notice that now X is negative and Y is positive because I am on this side of the origin. If I go down here, notice that both numbers are negative. If I come here, notice that I'm doing positive and negative. So this is how you see AutoCAD. And again, this is just to give you an idea, a basic idea of how AutoCAD works. We have a coordinate system based on X, Y, and Z, and everything's based off of that point, which is the origin, where 0 is for X, Y, and Z. Okay, so more than likely when you open your file, I'm going to open a new one, you're going to notice that your X and Y, your origin, is on the bottom left of your screen, which means more than likely by default you're going to be working on your upper right quadrant, which is positive, positive. Okay, now there's something that's called point of entry. Point of entry means where in this grid are you going to start your drawing. All right, for example, if I do a line, notice all those numbers, all those points. My point of entry would be where am I going to start the drawing, or where is the point of the drawing that I have. So if I click here, that line is going to start exactly at 8.63 blah 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 and 12.6956. So in other words, that point right there has a specific, right where that line is, has a specific point on the grid. Okay, so that's your point of entry. My best advice, whenever you start a drawing, always start it from the origin. Now, I'll finish with this. How do you choose your points? Okay, remember what we have here? X, Y, and Z. And notice that the numbers are separated by commas. That's exactly what you're going to be doing. You always separate your coordinates by commas, X being the first number. So if I do a line, notice what it's asking me on the command line, which we have discussed before. It says line specify first point. What is the first point? We just discussed how AutoCAD sees this system with a lot of points. So if I put here 1, comma 1, what that means is going to go to point 1 on X and point 1 on Y. If I just type it in like that without clicking anywhere on my mouse and I press enter, notice that that line is starting 1 on X, 1 on Y. Okay? Do it again. Now let's do 2, 2 for example, so you can see the difference. I do a line, which is a point. I'm going to put 2 on X, comma, 2 on Y. Press enter. It's going to take me, it's going to go 2 on X and 2 on Y. Just like the geometry problems you used to do. My best advice is that when you start a drawing, always start it from the origin. So when you start a line, 0, 0, enter, you're going to start your line from the origin. Okay, so I'll leave it at that. Okay, so we talked about the coordinate system, the 4 quadrants, how AutoCAD sees every single point and how you can use those points for them to be a point of entry. Every shape that we have in the drawing has specific points they created and put it on the actual grid. On the next video, we'll talk about the ways of inputting information using different input systems, which is absolute, relative, and polar.